The bare truth. Let's play hardball. Is Donald Trump the new big bad bear of the Republican Party? Back in the time of Ronald Reagan, they said it was Russia we needed to fear. You know, those people over in Moscow.
There is a bear in the woods. For some people, the bear is easy to see. Others don't see it at all. Some people say the bear is tame. Others say it's vicious and dangerous. Since no one can really be sure who's right, isn't it smart to be as strong as the bear? If there is a bear.
Well, now the Republicans are afraid of a new big bad bear, and he's right here in this country.
A lot of them would vote for it if it came to vote. But no. Gosh, we might poke the bear, is the language I've been hearing in the hallways. We might poke the bear. The president might get upset with us as United States senators if we vote on the Corker Amendment. So we're going to do everything we can to block it.
Has it gotten this bad that the Republican Party is no longer driven by a desire to protect the country from a foreign foe, but to protect its own members from getting beaten by its own leader? Good evening. I'm Chris Matthews in Washington. The transition of the Republican Party is now complete. Once the party that championed cold warriors like Ronald Reagan is now the party that blindly follows its own bear, Donald Trump. Throughout his presidency, Trump has rebuffed Republican orthodoxy. He's also cozied up to the same autocratic leaders Republicans once repudiated. Republicans are learning to pledge allegiance to their leader or pay the price. The New York Times reports a party that once championed free trade has now largely turned to protectionism under Mr. Trump. Sermons about inclusivity have been replaced with demagogic attacks on immigrants and black athletes. A trust but verify approach to foreign policy has given way to a seat-of-the-pants style in which rogue regimes like North Korea are elevated and Democratic allies like Canada are belittled. The president even seems to be towing the Moscow line on some of his foreign policy decisions. According to the Wall Street Journal, Putin gave Trump the idea to stop joint military exercises with South Korea. Well, the current chair of the Republican Party, Ronna Romney McDaniel, had a very stark warning to any Republican who dares to oppose the president. She tweeted, "Complacency is our enemy. Anyone that does not embrace Donald Trump's agenda of making America great again will be making a mistake." Her tweet, which caused some pushback, was a reference to these comments she made on Fox.
Anyone who doesn't embrace the Trump agenda and doesn't recognize the issues that propelled us to victory in the White House is going to be making a mistake.
For more, I'm joined by Yamiche Alcindor, White House reporter for a PBS NewsHour and an MSNBC political analyst. David Corn, Washington bureau chief for Mother Jones. David Jolly, former Republican congressman from Florida. And Robert Costa, national political reporter for the Washington Post, also an MSNBC political analyst. David Jolly, I want to talk to you about your Republican Party. Is it still there? Is the big bad bear now the man you're afraid to poke? It used to be the Russians. It used to be our enemies. Now it's the leader of the party who is so fearful, so fearsome, I should say, that that's the number one goal of any elected official. Do not mess, or do not, as Bob Corker said, dare poke the bear.
No, that's right, Chris. Look, the GOP that we knew is dead. It's over. This is the party of Donald Trump, not just because of shifts in policy. We see evolution of policies at time in both parties, but the tone of the party has changed dramatically, and the imprint of Donald Trump has forever changed the party. Consider Reagan spoke to the better angels. Bush 41 spoke to 1,000 points of light. Bush 43 to compassionate conservatism. Donald Trump ushered in tones of American carnage, what a lot of people believe is mean-spirited bigotry. He has led his followers through gaslighting and through lies, and as a result, he has broken the back of the mainstream GOP. It no longer exists.
Well, let me go to Robert Costa on this, because it seems to me the Republican Party used to be somewhat libertarian. A congressman falls in love with a woman from Buenos Aires and says he's on the Appalachian Trail hiking, and they say, well, love is love, love is blind. He may have made a fool of himself, but he's going to be our congressman. And then the guy did something really evil. He dared to challenge President Trump. He dared to do something that was weirdly unorthodox. What do you make of that? That's the sin you can't commit.
At this point, no one's spoiling for a fight with President Trump in the 2020 primary race. But as a longtime reporter on the GOP, what's surprising is that this orthodoxy from President Reagan has survived so long. Parties evolve, parties sometimes die, and this populism has gripped elements of the Democratic Party and, of course, the Republican Party in recent years as different voters have struggled with the global economy.
But the Bushes pushed. We had the NAFTA. Trump was President Reagan was a free trader. He was a guy that believed in coalition building. George Sr. Bush was a giant at coalition building in the first Gulf War. They used to be proud of their ability to assemble under James Baker, the Secretary of State, our allies. That was a proud aspect of the Republican Party. Now we're cashiering our allies. Robert?
They're transactional, Chris, in this Republican Congress. They tell me they got the tax cut, they got the conservative judges on the different courts, including on the Supreme Court, and so they're willing to have a transactional relationship with this outsider figure who is somehow taking over a party that was traditional, that was conservative, because that's the only way they feel they can survive. They talk to their own voters in their states, in their district, and they say the voters are with Trump.
Well, we'll see what's left when he's gone. Anyway, President Trump commended Kim Jong-un as a tough guy, as Fox News anchor Bret Baier pressed the president about human rights abuses under him. Let's watch that exchange.
You call people sometimes killers. He is a killer. I mean, he's clearly executing people.
He's a tough guy. Hey, when you take over a country, tough country, with tough people, and you take it over from your father, I don't care who you are, what you are, how much of an advantage you have. If you can do that at 27 years old, that's 1 in 10,000 that could do that. So he's a very smart guy. He's a great negotiator. But I think we understand each other.
But he's still done some really bad things.
Yeah, but so have a lot of other people done some really bad things. I mean, I could go through a lot of nations where a lot of bad things were done.
That's Godfather talk. It sure is. The president's nonchalant attitude toward the North Korean leader's abusive tactics mimics something he once said about Putin. Let's watch.
He's running his country, and at least he's a leader, unlike what we have in this country.
Yeah, but again, he kills journalists that don't agree with him.
Well, I think our country does plenty of killing also, Joe. So, there's a lot of stupidity going on in the world right now, Joe. A lot of killing going on, a lot of stupidity.
So thuggishness is okay as long as you're my pal.
Well, this is not about just...
This is frightening talk from the American president.
It's not just about a policy shift. This is about values. He is praising... I mean, it's okay to meet with your enemy. We try to do this all the time to negotiate arms deals. We don't like the Iranian leaders. But he meets with this guy who is a thuggish dictator who employs death camps, summary executions, mass forced starvation. And he says, hey, pretty good guy. He's doing this at 27. How old was Hitler when he took over the German government? I mean, he seems to have no feeling for any sense of values, American values, or any other. And the scary thing is he can talk this way, and there's not a single political appointee or aide in his administration who finds or takes offense with this and says, I can't work for a guy who praises a fellow who runs concentration camps. And Republicans on the Hill, except for Corker, you don't hear a peep out of them. This is about values. It's not about a change in policies.
Well, it's amazing. I was amazed at this purging because I think FDR didn't even defend our wartime ally Joseph Stalin on the purges and that kind of stuff. This guy is now purging people in his own party. Look at Mark Sanford. He purged him the other night and said, you're out of here. And it worked.
But here's the thing. President Trump was always about a cult of personality. And people aren't scared about President Trump as much as they're scared, as Robert said, about his voters. What you're having is massive amounts of people, millions of people who voted for Donald Trump because they saw just a strong man. They saw this idea that someone who had a lot of money, who was successful. They weren't talking about people that had Republican values or Republican policies. I argue that the moment that he won that nomination is the moment the Republican Party knew that that the party that they knew was no longer there. Because President Trump is praising all these people. He doesn't care about the
but there are people out there. Look, my father was one. There are people that are just sort of cloth coat, regular, not rich Republicans who believed in small government, believed in lower taxes, didn't like communists. These were true values.
But remember,
what happened to those people?
Anger.
You say it's the Republican Party. What happened to those people?
It seems like anger has replaced values. It has replaced the ideology.
I think you're right. I think it's resentment.
It's all about grievances.
Well said. Retiring Senator Bob Corker of Tennessee is one of the few who dares to speak out against this president. Yesterday, he said that the Republican Party was becoming a cultish thing. That's C-U-L. Let's watch.
Look, we're in a strange place. I mean, it's almost it's becoming a cultish thing, isn't it? It's not a good place for any party to end up with a cult-like situation.
Well, the president's eldest son, Donald Trump Jr., was asked about the senator's comments. Here's what he had to say about Corker.
I think that's ridiculous. I think, if it's a cult, it's because they like what my father's doing.
Okay, fine. Let me get back to David Jolly. You've been elected to serve in Congress by a Republican membership down in Tampa area. Those people down in Tampa, those Republicans down there, have they gotten so angry, as David Corn said, that their anger, their resentment against the establishment of this country is so great it overrides all other beliefs, all other principles?
It is, and those are the cultish elements. And the North Korea example is very informative. Look, this is a president who is historically incompetent when it comes to foreign affairs, but he's not selling his base on his competence or on the merits of the North Korea meeting. He's selling his base on his own strength, the fact that this is a president now that they can believe in, that is, yes, a strong man, but somebody that can stand up to dictators. And notice the underlying element of this as well. A president who retreats from his own peers at the G7, who cannot go toe-to-toe with people equally as competent and supporters of free democracy in a free world. Instead, he positions himself with a much weaker dictator on the world stage to show his base that he is a strong president. They are believing in his strength, not in his competency.
Is this some sort of real it's not populism, or it's sort of know-nothing. Are his people so anti-foreign, anti-even Canadian, anti-European, that they'll take his side against people who are pretty much our people, our friends over there?
I think what he has done...
Do they hate Angela Merkel? Do they hate Theresa May? Do they hate Justin Trudeau? Do they really despise those people enough to join the president and bullying them around?
This is where we have to call President Trump to task for something that's very shameful behavior. The elements of xenophobia, frankly, of racism and bigotry have existed in the Republican Party, but we have seen past presidents shun those elements. Donald Trump has embraced those. It was part of his path to victory.
But also,
I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, when you're out there talking to people, there was also this idea that when they heard America first, they saw everybody that wasn't American as an enemy. So I covered the G7. I was in Canada, and it was shocking to see him basically talk all this trash about Justin Trudeau and then get on a plane and not be able to even sign a joint communique with our allies and then come out with a joint statement for North Korea. But the people that I talked to are eating it up. They're saying this is what we wanted. This is what we voted for.
Robert, I think it was Popeye Doyle in French Connection 2, who said, "I'd rather be a lamppost in New York than the president of France." Is that the sentiment of our president today? He'd rather be a lamppost in New York than president of France?
Yes, that is his perspective.
Thank you. That's a good answer. That's a good answer, and I like your short and sweetness. Go ahead.
Maybe I should just leave it there, but I mean, you can stitch this all together.
Okay.
Okay. Well,
thank you.
All right. I'll leave it there then.
I love your yes, sir. Let's go. Yamiche Alcindor, David Corn, David Jolly, and the great Robert Costa, a man of few words. Very Gary Cooper of you. Coming up, a government watchdog reports finds that FBI Director James Comey made a serious error when he reopened the investigation into Hillary Clinton's emails just days before the election. Well, we knew that. Now it's official. And that's the move that helped help Trump win. So why is Trump trying to play victim here? He won. He won because of the screw-up. And that's ahead. Plus, Republicans are feeling the heat over Trump's policy of separating children from their parents at the border. That policy is being called inhumane, don't you think? And now Trump's allies even them are starting to pipe up against it. And what if Barack Obama saluted a North Korean general? Didn't he do it? I've seen him do it. The Hardball Roundtable tackles that. And then the cult of Trump. And the latest from far-right ringleader, boy, he's something else, Stephen King. Well, he's the guy who famously said a lot of illegal immigrants have calves the size of cantaloupes. Who's measuring their calves for smuggling drugs? Anyway, finally, let me finish tonight with Trump Watch. They won't like it. This is Hardball where the action is. Well, the New York Attorney General today sued President Trump and his 3 oldest children, alleging a persistent pattern of illegal conduct at the family's charitable foundation. Look at them. As the Washington Post first reported, the lawsuit argues that Trump repeatedly misused the nonprofit to pay off his business's creditors, to decorate one of his golf clubs, and to stage a multi-million-dollar giveaway at his 2016 campaign events. Well, according to today's filing, the charity was co-opted by Mr. Trump's presidential campaign. It cites email traffic from Trump campaign staffers showing that they directed the foundation's expenditures, even though such charities are explicitly prohibited from engaging in political activities. President Trump reacted on Twitter, blaming sleazy New York Democrats for bringing the lawsuit. He also said, "I won't settle this case." We'll be right back.
I think the secretary is right. And that is that the American people are sick and tired of hearing about your damn emails.
Thank you. Me too. Me too.
Welcome back, Harvard. That was, of course, Hillary Clinton's 2016 primary opponent, famously attempting to put the issue of the former secretary's emails to rest. And now, almost 3 years later, we may be a step closer to doing just that. Today, the Justice Department concluded its internal review of the FBI's handling of the Hillary Clinton email investigation. And while it finds no evidence of political bias in the FBI's prosecutorial decisions, it says that former Director James Comey made a serious error of judgment when he sent a letter to Congress reopening the investigation of Hillary's emails just days before the election. It also called Comey insubordinate for his decision to hold a press conference in July of 2016 without consulting the Attorney General. It was there that Comey criticized Clinton, despite announcing that no charges would be brought. We all remember this. Let's watch.
Although we did not find clear evidence that Secretary Clinton or her colleagues intended to violate laws governing the handling of classified information, there is evidence that they were extremely careless in their handling of very sensitive, highly classified information.
Well, despite those criticisms, the report states that we found no evidence that Comey's public statement announcing the FBI's decision to close the investigation was a result of bias or an effort to influence the election. Joining me right now is Julie Ainsley, national political reporter for NBC News. Cynthia Oxney is a former federal prosecutor, and Congressman Gerald Nadler of New York is the ranking Democrat in the House Judiciary Committee. Congressman, it seems to be the big takeaway from this report, and it was a voluminous report, was A, Comey was wrong to make that statement he did and the big announcement about Hillary's situation on the emails in July, and very wrong 11 days before the election when he reopened the whole thing publicly. Your thoughts?
I think there are 2 big takeaways. And that's certainly one of them. He should not have done either one of those things. He substituted his own judgment for department guidelines and principles which are designed to make sure that they don't affect an election. And arguably, he certainly did affect the election. And secondly,
on that point, do you think Hillary was right? I mean, that 11 days out saying that the Anthony Weiner matter had opened the whole thing up again, that closely had effect on the results?
Oh, it certainly had an effect on the results. Whether it had enough of an effect to have changed the outcome, I think it's probably true, but you can't prove that. But the second takeaway is that contrary to what the Republicans were saying for a year and a half before the election and to this day, there was no bias in the FBI. There was no bias in the Department of Justice. And they were trying to push the Department of Justice as they're trying to pressure the special prosecutor now, as they're trying to taint the jury pool, the public, against whatever he says now. And this is very important to say. There was no political bias whatsoever.
What jumped out at me, because I'm like the people who watch this show, I'm a political person. I pay attention. I read all the papers, watch everything. I know you are at the heart of it, coming from the New York media. You live in it every day. Do you think it's believable, because this is in the report, that James Comey, the head of the FBI, did not know that Huma Abedin, Hillary Clinton's top kick, was married to Anthony Weiner, the congressman in New York who got in all that trouble? Didn't know they were together. Do you think that's true?
I don't know whether it's true or not, but stranger things have happened. I don't know what he reads or doesn't read, and he may. I don't know.
Well, let me tell you, Cynthia tells me he's not a political guy, Comey. He may be incompetent on some things.
It's
he ain't sitting there
Bureau
thinking
of
political.
Investigation. I mean, come on. Of course he knew. It's ridiculous.
Of course he knew?
Of course he knew. It's ridiculous.
Julia?
You know, I don't like to wager, but I do think that the reason we're asking this question is not just because it's fun to play these games in Washington, where we all know
it is weird because this is a New York tabloid story that never quit about Anthony Weiner. How many jokes they make about him?
That's true. Yeah. But I think the real reason why that matters is because of the delay. We found out from this report today that as of September 29th, 2016, they had enough information to subpoena those emails on Anthony Weiner's computer. So why did we not hear about that till October 28th when he told Congress?
Well, was there an agent there, a special agent there, who slowed it down to have a bigger impact on the election?
Well, so that is what they investigated. What they found is there are a number of people who decided not to move forward. One of those was Comey. One of those was McCabe. They say political bias shouldn't be involved in their decision, but another one was Peter Strzok. And as we saw from text messages today, it looks like he did have a political bias, and they couldn't quite rule that out.
What did you make, Congressman, of this member, a special agent who said, I'm going to stop Trump from being elected? Was that just bull talk or BS?
I think it was. I think that what those tapes prove is that Strzok and his girlfriend, Lisa Page, agreed with the majority of the American people who don't like Donald Trump, and they're entitled to their political opinions.
But when he said, we're going to stop it, what do you make of that?
I think that was a rhetoric to his girlfriend.
What would you make of that legally?
Let me add one thing.
Cynthia, wouldn't you use that against some guy if he said, I'm going to stop it and I'm a special agent?
It's totally inappropriate for a special agent of the FBI who's supposed to be above reproach to be writing that. It makes no sense. And we tell our children, whatever you put in your email, it's not private. Nothing is private. And if you are working on an investigation that this serious, you should not be saying that.
But the IG specifically found that there was no evidence that any decision or action taken by any of the agents, Strzok, Page, anybody else, was affected by political bias.
You think that'll stop Trump from tooting this?
No, it won't stop Trump, but Trump lies about everything. So
but here's the problem. What this is done, it's the Strzok and it's Comey breaking all the rules. And it was a terrible thing that he did for the Department of Justice. And that's the way I look at it, as a prosecutor and as somebody who wants the justice system to appear fair. And it does taint the whole justice system. The Strzok has tainted it.
Here's my big question. You guys are maybe Joy. Why didn't he, when he found out that Anthony Weiner had some stuff on it that was got on his, they were sharing, husband and wife were sharing the same laptop at home, and some of the stuff he was picking up from Hillary on his laptop. Why didn't he just look at it, examine it, and then decide to make a statement on it? They checked out this laptop in a couple of hours. Why did they have to make a big announcement? We're looking at the laptop.
So he would have had the luxury of that if he had acted sooner. If he'd acted in September, when he was notified about that, he would have had the luxury. As we remember, there were thousands of emails people were going through, and a lot of the emails on Anthony Weiner's computer were copies of things they already had, but they didn't know that at the time. So they didn't know how long.
Why didn't they look at them before they talked?
Well, so at October 28th, they didn't know quite how many they were going to have to go through. And
but they still got through it. They still got through it.
But he didn't have the luxury of time.
Well, I think that's where Hillary has a right to be angry. Anyway, responding to the revelation that James Comey also used a personal email account to conduct official FBI business, Hillary Clinton wrote in a tweet, but my emails. Congressman, you're the political guy here. Do you think Hillary's right to say this was biased against her because she said, even though the report said it wasn't biased, do you think that the FBI acted in a definitely unpleasant way to Hillary here?
I think the FBI conducted an honest investigation. I think that Comey, for reasons of his own personal public relations and for reasons of what he considered public relations of the FBI, violated the guidelines and improperly substituted his judgment for the rules and thereby biased the election against Hillary.
We've got a report, I read it in Politico today, Congressman, that Mr. Mueller's not doing too well in the polls. This constant trashing of him by this president and his people out there on Fox and everywhere else is having an impact.
Especially given the fact that he's behaving properly and not answering it and not leaking. The only thing we know about this investigation has been leak-proof. The only thing we know about the investigation is from court filings, who's been indicted and what the indictments say, who's pleaded guilty, and any legal filings they make. Period. So you've got one side, the president and all his allies, trashing Mueller, trashing the investigation, trashing the FBI, trying to taint the jury pool, as Giuliani quite directly said. And on the other side, a proper professional investigation, saying nothing and answering nothing.
Yeah, the good guys are not winning this public debate.
Well, the one thing we know because of this report is that Mueller will be very cautious about when he does his release. And it will, if he can't get it done by August 1, there won't be a peep until after the election.
I thought about that today. I mean,
the
the
2018
lessons
election.
learned.
Oh, yeah,
You
absolutely.
got that, Congressman? Are you going to have a shutdown of any kind of...
I don't know if August 1st is a magic date, but yes.
Okay, Julia?
But right, I mean, the lessons learned from this. It is very probable that we could be in a similar situation. We have a president who will be, his party going through midterms. He will be facing another election in 2020. And there are countless investigations into him and his businesses and to his lawyer we saw today. And so it could be possible that you could be in this position again where federal investigators
How about state investigators?
Or the state investigators
in New York
have
City,
to know.
the US
I don't think they're bound by.
I don't think they're worried about the congressional schedule. Anyway, U.S. Congressman Jerry now, the ranking Democrat in the House Judiciary, he may be the most important guy in the country next year. Thank you, Julie Ainsley and Cynthia Oxney. Up next, Republicans are under increasing pressure due to Trump's policy of separating families at the border. Now, some leading conservatives are coming out against it, calling the practice disgraceful. This is Hardball, where the action is. Welcome back to Hardball. The Trump administration policy of separating children from parents who illegally cross the border is now facing opposition from some Republicans. Here's Oklahoma Senator James Langford addressing the issue in a call to a constituent.
What I'm making a request to the White House on is keep families together as much as we can possibly keep families together for as long as we can possibly keep them together.
Well, House Speaker Paul Ryan said today that he wanted the issue addressed through legislation.
We don't want kids to be separated from their parents. I think I just made that really clear.
And NBC's reporting that Texas Senator John Cornyn is planning on introducing a bill that will require that families be kept together while they are waiting for court proceedings. And today, Attorney General Jeff Sessions said that the Bible provides a justification for his policy. Let's watch.
Obey the laws of the government because God has ordained the government for his purposes. Our policies that can result in short-term separation of families is not unusual or unjustified.
Well, here's how White House Press Secretary Sarah Huckabee Sanders responded.
It is very biblical to enforce the law. That is actually repeated a number of times throughout the Bible. But the separation of illegal alien families is the product of the same legal loopholes that Democrats refuse to close. And these laws are the same that have been on the books for over a decade. And the president is simply enforcing them.
However, there's no law that states that families must be separated at the border. It's happening now because it's a policy that the Trump administration initiated. I'm joined right now by MSNBC correspondent Jacob Sabaroff, who's been given access to the country's largest facility for those children in Brownsville, Texas. He described the facility, a former Walmart, as looking more like incarceration than temporary shelter. Let's go to you, sir. And my question to you is, what's it like, Jacob? What's it like inside there?
It's pretty chilling to go in there, Chris. I mean, again, they call it a shelter, but it feels more like a jail or a prison. And to hear the Attorney General say that it's not an unusual situation to separate children from their parents for a short period of time, I mean, that's absolutely untrue. It's completely unusual, and it's never been done before in this capacity. The reason there are now 30% of the kids inside that facility behind me, the old Walmart, 30% of the 1,500 kids in there that have been separated from their families is because of a brand new Trump administration policy to separate, prosecute, I should say, 100% of the people that enter the country illegally, and that results in the separation. The only reason there's an overcrowding crisis inside there, and now in Tornillo, the port of entry near El Paso, they're setting up a tent city, which we're finding out just tonight, is because there's not enough space because of this new policy. And so it's completely disingenuous for the Attorney General to say that it's not new. And same thing goes for the press secretary who stood up there today and said there's nothing new about what they're doing. This is new to the Trump administration. It has never been done in this way before.
You know, I've said this before, Jacob, but it has a sort of Sophie's Choice aspect to it, you know, from World War II and the Holocaust. I mean, pulling the kids away. What are the kids like when they want to see their mom? What do they do? Do they ask to see, can I see my mom? And the guards say, no, you can't. Is that what it's like? Just when kids want to see their parents.
The reality is there is no seeing your mom or your dad or your family members when you're inside here. You have the opportunity to call your sponsor if you are an unaccompanied minor and you showed up here without your parents. But if your parents were separated from you at the border, your parents are in federal prison right now. And the only way to get in touch with them is to have that federal penal institution get your parents on the phone, schedule a time to talk to you, and you don't know when you're going to see them again. The average stay in here is 52 days. And Chris, again, it's not unusual to have unaccompanied minors come into the United States in 2014 and in 2016. We had big migrant crises where you had a lot of unaccompanied minors, but this is a self-inflicted wound from the Trump administration, a crisis created artificially by separating these kids down at the border, creating the overcrowding situation, crisis, separations that we're seeing right now.
Well, Jeff Sessions said today that the children in these facilities are treated well. Let's watch him.
This is HHS, Health and Human Services, something entirely different from the criminal justice system to take care of these children in a good and decent and proper way. They are provided food and education in their native language, health and dental care.
Well, it's hot down there, isn't it, Jacob? It's hot. And they're talking about a tent city now with the people really living in the environment of Texas in the summer.
What the Attorney General said is not incorrect, but it's not the issue. The issue is not whether or not licensed child care professionals can give good quality care inside this facility to the children that are inside there. As somebody from the ACLU told me, you could send these kids to a 5-star hotel and they'd still be traumatized for their entire life from being ripped away from their parents. I mean, he's just deflecting. It's not about the quality of the care that's going on inside this facility, even though it is child incarceration, even though they are only allowed outside 2 hours a day, and for the other 22, they're inside the Walmart. Again, that is not new for what's going on inside facilities like this and the other 99 of them in 17 states throughout the country. It is the fact that the Trump administration has chosen to put a large amount of kids, more than ever before. This place is as busy as it's ever been, because the Trump administration has chosen as a deterrent strategy to scare people into not coming by saying, we're going to rip you apart from your kids. We know that prevention through deterrence, it was the official Border Patrol policy in the 90s. All that did was result in more people crossing through more dangerous ways and dying in the desert or here in the brush in South Texas. And that's what you're going to see from a policy like this. People are going to stop declaring asylum, and people are going to go into the country in more dangerous ways. And then it'll become a true life or death humanitarian crisis, Chris. That's the next step in all this.
Thank you. NBC's Jacob Suproff. Amazing reporting. Up next, can you imagine if Obama did it? New footage shows President Trump saluting a North Korean general. The Hardball Roundtable weighs in on that picture, that pretty picture. Plus, Rudy Giuliani is tamping down reports that Michael Cohen is about the flip. But everybody else thinks he's about the flip. You're watching Hardball. Welcome back to Hardball. President Trump is shrugging off the human rights abuses of North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un following his historic summit in Singapore. And now Trump is stirring more controversy thanks to video released by North Korean state media. In the North Korean state media video, President Trump goes in for a handshake with a North Korean general. The general raises his hand in a salute, and Trump returns the salute. And then the two men shake hands again. Oh, there, let's have more of this. Anyway, today, White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders said Trump saluted the general as a common courtesy to a military official. How'd she know that? Let's compare that reaction to what we saw in 2012 when President Barack Obama was photographed appearing to bow to Mexican President Felipe Calderon at the G20. Maybe because he's taller than the guy. Trump blasted Obama on Twitter, writing, "The amateur. First, Barack Obama was caught bowing to the Saudi king, but now the president of Mexico." And more, I'm joined by the roundtable. Adrian Elrod is a Democratic strategist and former senior aide for Hillary for America. And John Brabender is not a Hillary guy. He's a Republican strategist. And Ayesha Rasco, White House reporter for NPR. Okay, what do you make of this, Adrian? Suppose Hillary had done a really crisp salute.
I mean, can you imagine, Chris? She would have been, first of all, articles of impeachment would have been filed against her immediately. I mean, we probably would have had more articles of impeachment before that.
I remember when Jimmy Carter kissed Brezhnev. That was a bad day.
Yeah, no, I think that I think that what you're seeing here, though,
we're going to play this a while. We're going to keep playing this, baby.
It's a very dangerous trajectory here. You're seeing the president of the United States, who has more respect for authoritarian leaders like Vladimir Putin and Kim Jong-un than our closest Democratic allies because he
look at the happy father there, Kim, that young man there. He's smiling in glee. Hi, guys. Look, he's saluting. How do you know this guy doesn't do the thumb screws? How do you know this is the king torturer over there? And the guy knocks off his uncle and other jobs like that for Kim.
Well, I don't understand. Are you now worried that the president is too soft? I mean, look, I wouldn't care if he would have done the Macarena with the entire North Korea army if this is going to lead to the denuclearization of North Korea. I think we're at least have a real shot at it, and I think he's played this pretty smart, and he deserves credit.
Okay, he's optimistic.
I mean, this is something that the North Koreans will be able to use as propaganda for years to come. So the White House is defending it, saying it was a common courtesy, but this is something that if things don't go well, North Korea has this, and they will be able to show this.
Is there a term for this in the Far East? Kowtowing? Anyway, meanwhile, President Trump's attorney, Rudy Giuliani, responded to speculation Wednesday that Trump's longtime attorney and personal fixer, Michael Cohen, could be closer to cooperating with prosecutors. Here's what Rudy told Fox.
He's not cooperating, nor do we care, because the president did nothing wrong. We're very comfortable if he cooperates that there's nothing he can cooperate about with regard to President Trump. I am absolutely certain of that from everything I know about that investigation. Michael Cohen, I think, would tell you he's got nothing incriminating with the president. And really, they should stop going after him. They're torturing the guy. The reality is they're trying to frighten him.
Bank fraud, mail fraud, the works. But I tell you, we all watch these perp walks, whatever you call them. We all watch Michael Cohen. We watch him walking past the cameras, knowing he's on camera, looking very sad.
Yep.
What's up? Rudy says he's in the corral. Everything's all. I don't think so.
Well, look, I also think that every time Rudy Giuliani opens his mouth and says something, half the time he's wrong. So I think the more analysis that we do on everything that Rudy says pertaining to this investigation, it kind of takes us a little bit off the game. Emmett Flood is the one who's behind the scenes doing all of the work.
Who is?
Rudy's the one.
Emmett Flood. Yeah,
Emmett Flood. Rudy's the attorney. Rudy is the one who's out there spouting his mouth. Again, half the stuff.
Would you say that if Rudy were here?
Of course I would.
Okay, just checking you out there. John Brabender.
Well, look, I mean, everybody keeps talking about, that he looks unhappy. Well, he did get raided. I mean, he has good reasons, just like Manafort has good reasons.
He's recorded all these phone conversations, and they've got all the recordings.
But so far,
every time he had a woman to fix or keep quiet or something, this guy has it on tape somewhere. He's got everything in his email. He's got it all there.
Yep.
And they're looking through it.
But look, we have not seen one piece of evidence at all that any of this is related to the president.
Because they're holding it.
Yeah, but we haven't seen it, and so everybody wants
you're
to
banking on. Let me get this straight, John Brender, because you'll be on again. You're banking on Michael Cohen being clean and having nothing on the president.
But Rudy's also doing a good job saying no matter what comes out, we can't trust anything anymore because of this FBI. And I think that's a fair.
Because of this guy that says
the Mueller investigation is not leaking. So right, so
keep trashing Mueller. Go ahead.
And that's what I think. That's what Giuliani saying these things is all about. The investigators know what they have on Michael Cohen and whether they have anything on the president. Giuliani, I don't know that he would even know, but I think he's trying to make the case to the public that there's nothing happening, and if you say it enough, you can make this case. We're innocent. But, people often do say they're innocent, but they can still end up getting charged.
All I know is if this guy's did anything wrong, and I think they did, Mueller's going to catch him. That's what I'm sure of. There'll be no walking away. He's going to catch him. This guy looks serious. Finally, one of your favorites, Iowa Republican Congressman Steve King, is under fire again after retweeting a British political activist who has described himself as a Nazi sympathizer and an admirer of Adolf Hitler. King retweeted the post, a screenshot of a Breitbart story on opposition to mass migration to Italy, and commented, "Europe is waking up. Will America in time?" Well, the Huffington Post reported late today that King said he didn't realize he'd retweeted a Nazi sympathizer but wouldn't commit to deleting the tweet. It's certainly not the first time Mr. King's far-right views have sparked controversy. In 2013, he told Newsmax that most immigrants were drug mules.
For everyone who's a valedictorian, there's another 100 out there that they weigh 130 pounds and they've got calves the size of cantaloupes because they're hauling 75 pounds of marijuana across the desert. Those people would be legalized with the same act.
John, what's it with your crowded cantaloupes? Wasn't Dan Burton out there shooting cantaloupes to see if somebody shot himself or not?
Yeah.
Well, what is this with cantaloupes? Does he measure the legs of these guys to see if they're like cantaloupe size?
Look,
it is weird.
I'm going to be the first to say that he shouldn't have retweeted. And if he didn't know who he was retweeting, he shouldn't have waited the entire day to discredit it.
Where do you put Stephen King on the spectrum?
Well,
Hitler being 10.
Well, yeah, I'm not going to get into that. I'll let Steve King defend himself. But the problem I have when this type of thing happens is it takes us off the real discussions that we need to have on illegal immigration and the reforms that need to happen that America wants to have happen. And this is something where we just get off message.
Aisha, Stephen King just keeps doing it.
Well, I think that Republicans have to decide what message they want to send and what's important to them. Like, is it important that they stand up if someone retweets someone who is a Nazi sympathizer? Is that important for them to stand up for and to stand up against? And that's something that they.
Do you believe this guy King didn't know he was retweeting this Nazi guy?
Of course I don't believe him. Look, the bottom line is white nationalists are part of the Trump Republican Party coalition. That is the bottom line. That's why you're not seeing a lot of Republicans have the courage to come out and criticize Steve King for his tweet.
Roundtable sticking with us, and up next, these three will tell me something I don't know. You're watching Hardball.
Scott Pruitt, are you confident we can continue given all the ethics violations?
Frankly, I haven't paid that close attention to it. I don't know enough about what Pruitt has or has not done to give you a good comment.
Well, Speaker Paul Ryan apparently hasn't seen a newspaper in a few months. Ryan may not want to comment on the myriad of controversies swirling around the EPA administrator, but Pruitt's taking plenty of heat from other conservatives. The National Review says Pruitt should be canned, arguing this is no way for any public official to treat taxpayers. And last night, Fox News host Laura Ingraham retweeted that Pruitt's bad judgment is hurting Trump and that he's got to go. Even Pruitt's longtime ally, Senator James Inhofe of Oklahoma, says that every day something new comes up and that unless something drastically changes, it's time for him to leave the job. Press Secretary Sarah Huckabee Sanders today was asked if the president still has confidence in Pruitt. Here's what she had to say.
What is his status within the administration, and does the president have confidence in him to remain as administrator?
Certainly, we have some areas of concern in some of these allegations, but I don't have any personnel announcements at this point.
We'll be right back. We're back with the Hardball Roundtable. Adrian, tell me something I don't know.
Democratic women are in full force. They want to run for office. In 2016, as a demonstration, 950 women contacted Emily's List seeking support for running for office. This year it's 36,000. Very exciting.
950 to 36,000.
Yep.
All the evidence is a big women's year.
Yep.
You, John.
Shortly after President Trump was elected, U.S. Senator Bob Casey from Pennsylvania stood up and said he's happy to lead the resistance. A new poll was released just a few hours ago that showed 56% of Pennsylvanians either aren't voting for him or are undecided, showing that right now he's one of the weakest Democrat senators.
Is Barletta going to win?
I think it's going to be.
Are you working for Barletta?
Well, yes, I am.
Okay, let's get it on the table. Let's get on the table.
But the point is, this is going to be a battleground that's going to go into 2020.
Because of you're going to get Barletta. You personally will bring him in across the finish line and beat Bob Casey.
Do you want to make a contribution?
No.
Okay.
I might make a bet, but go ahead.
Quick statistic for you. So President Trump has pardoned 5 people and issued 2 commutations at this point in his presidency, compared to the past 3 presidents who at this point had issued 0 pardons or commutations. So he is different from other presidents. Instead of other presidents waited, he's jumping right in.
Yeah, a lot of them waited till the last second when nobody was looking.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, all
but
right, Mark Rich. Anyway, thank you, Adrian Elrod, John Brabender, and Aisha Rasco. When we return, let me finish tonight with Trump Watch. It'll be short and sweet tonight. You're watching Hardball. Trump Watch Thursday, June 14th, 2018. Could it be that Donald Trump, so recently a pro-choice big city Democrat, joined the Republican Party in order to destroy it? Think of the principles that have been undergirding the party: respect for the rugged individual, opposition to excessive government power, a cringing hostility toward federal deficits, hatred of communism and communists personally. But here you have the new leader of the Republican Party operating in plain sight to destroy each and every one of these Republican principles, these pillars of the grand old party itself. And what happens if someone in the party and the GOP tries to stop him? He's accused of poking the bear. Wow, that's Hardball for now. Thanks for being with us.
Hey, it's Chris Hayes from MSNBC. You know, every day I come to the office and we make a television show, and every day I think to myself, there's so much more I want to talk about. And so this is our podcast. It's called Why Is This Happening? And the whole idea behind it is to get to the root of the things that we see play out every day. They're driven by big ideas. Each week, I sit down with a person uniquely suited to explain why this is happening.
New episodes of Why Is This Happening? Every Tuesday. Listen for free wherever you get your podcasts.